Orson Welles' The Other Side of the Wind. Now that we finally got to see this movie after almost 40 years of it being made, it's amazing to actually sit and watch a, quote, new Orson Welles film, even one that is not technically the film he was making back then. If you know the history of this movie, you know that the Peter Bogdanovich character narrating was supposed to be Orson narrating, and all of this and all the different problems and blah blah blah, and the film had to be edited because it was never finished. I am a huge fan of Orson Welles. I've been looking forward to this movie ever since I started reading about it in the 70s. When I was a kid, I was reading about this movie. Now that I've seen it, I almost don't know what to think. Did I like it? Yes, I did. It's not the film I thought it was going to be, but that doesn't make it a bad film. It also is a film that I just cannot see the modern audience embracing. This is a very, very 70s movie, and I don't mean that in a bad way. This is a movie of and about the 70s. Modern audiences are not going to like this movie. For one, they're not going to like the editing. They're not going to like the film choices because of the fact that Orson had to constantly film the movie in little bits. You know, he would have enough money to film a couple of minutes of footage, and then he'd have to go do a narration gig and then film another couple of minutes of footage. Some of this is shot on Super 8. Some of it's shot on 16 millimeters. Some of it 35 millimeter. Some of it is shot in black and white. Some of it's shot full frame. Some of it is widescreen. The aperture keeps changing. The color keeps changing. The aspect ratio keeps changing. It's really strange, and I don't think a modern audience is going to sit still for this movie for its nearly 2-hour runtime. At the same time, it's a brilliant movie that, just like Orson Welles did through the bulk of his career, broke boundaries. This is literally the first found footage movie ever made. And the found footage actually makes sense because it makes sense in the movie why there are all these different cameras, why there's all these different film stocks, all these different aspect ratios. It makes sense in the movie. Everyone says the found footage genre was started with Cannibal Holocaust. And now that we've got Other Side of the Wind, which didn't technically exist because it had never been released, this goes all the way back to Other Side of the Wind. But then again, you also go, what year is Other Side of the Wind? Because it was started in 1970, and it's got a copyright of 2018. This movie is very much a film of its time. At the same time, it's a film that predicted so much. I mean, the story is very rooted in the 70s. It's very much a pushback of the new Hollywood and the French New Wave. At the same time, semi-autobiographical. As much as Orson Welles might say the film is not autobiographical, this film is autobiographical. This is Orson Welles as he saw himself, or as he thought others might see him. You have to see the movie to understand what I'm talking about. That is sort of what's going to be lost on a modern audience, is if they don't know the history of Orson Welles, they don't know the history of this film itself, or if they don't understand the history of the time period it's taking place in, and who some of these characters are obvious amalgamations or approximations of people who were in Orson's life. People are not going to understand this movie. And I'm not saying it's so smart you can't understand it. I'm not being a film snob here. I'm saying this is a film of its time. Other Side of the Wind is almost like unearthing an artifact of a film. That said, I did enjoy it. There were things I didn't like about it, but overall, I enjoyed it. One of the things that pissed me off, and this is just a personal thing, everyone knows I don't like Netflix. And no, I did not watch this on Netflix. Take that for what you will. The very first thing that comes up in this movie is a Netflix original film. Even before a film by Orson Welles credit, Netflix has to smear their logo feces all over this thing. That angered me right off the bat, because it's like Netflix is claiming this movie as their own. It's no longer an Orson Welles film. It's a Netflix original production. Fucking bastards. But at the same time, I do think people should see this movie. Don't see it getting great reviews by the modern cinema, especially by the fact that even though it's predating a lot of the tropes, it's making fun of a lot of where cinema would go in the late 70s and early 80s. And I think that just shows how prescient Welles was, as he always has been. Just go back and look at F for Fake, or Touch of Evil, or The Chimes at Midnight, or The Trial, or anything like that. He was always ahead of the curve. Always. Citizen Kane is so far ahead of where a movie in the 1940s should be. And I think this is another one of those. And that just shows even more how underappreciated Orson Welles was, and how much Hollywood just shit on him because they were afraid of him.